Hi students, today is Wednesday, March 25th, 2020, and I am here to give you your third video session. So let me just share my screen with you all so we can get started for the day. Okay, so today we are continuing to talk about the same standard. So HSLS 3.1, but we're going to focus more on reproduction. I'm sorry, it's supposed to say reproduction. So see, we all constantly editing, constantly re-looking at my reviewing my material for you, so I apologize for that. So we are still talking about how traits are passed down, how DNA is passed down from parent to offspring. So last time we talked about meiosis, so the process of these sex cells actually dividing in order to get their DNA. One half of an embryo that needs to come together in the process of reproduction, sexual reproduction specifically, that I'm talking about right now, in order to create a baby or to create an offspring. Okay, so our objective for today is to model the process of fertilization by exploring a website on the mating strategies of different species. And as always, here's my contact information. Please email me, text me, call me. If you have questions, comment on this video, comment on Google Classroom. I am constantly checking and yes. Okay, so first things first, let me click what we're doing today. Okay, so today we are going to be checking out this mating game from PBS. So first thing I want you to do is think about this question. So there's background information that I'm about to click on and show you. So you're going to explain the concept of this biological trade-off. So in the background information, it's kind of just a page long, short page, and it talks about a biological trade-off. So what are the pros and cons? So what is this trade-off? A trade-off meaning you have to give up some stuff in order to get something. So you're sacrificing in order to gain. So let's click on that so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So here's the mating game. It talks, it's basically just like a dating game with animals. So you're given reading descriptions, and then you have to guess which mate would be the best option for the bachelor or bachelorette that you're previously looking at. Okay, so background information is down here. You read this quick background information. It talks about a biological trade-off. So pause the video now, take a minute to write what a biological trade-off is. Okay, welcome back. So by now you should have completed that first question on your packet on page, what page is it? Page 6. So page 6. So you guys are doing that right now. So you should have had that completed. And now you are going to launch into this game. If your computer is not allowing you to play this game, then that's fine. Then just skip ahead. So skip the next 2 questions. So the question is about playing rounds of the game, taking notes, and then ranking the different strategies. So skip that part. If you are not here, you can skip ahead. But for those of us that are here, you will play 3 rounds of this game, and you're taking notes on the different species that you encounter as you play. So here's what you do. You click start the game. You can turn the sound on and off as you wish. So start round 1. You start round 1. You read this background information about their character, about Darren, this bird here. You move on, you ask question 1, you see what contestant 1 would say, what contestant 2, what contestant 3 would say, and then so on and so forth for all of these. Okay, and then when you're done asking questions, you think, hey, I've got a pretty solid choice of this, then you pick whichever animal candidate you think is the correct answer, and it's going to go through them for you. And lo and behold, you picked the right one, and it tells you all about each candidate. So then you keep going on. There's a little honeymoon, fun. And then you move on to the next one. So you do 3 rounds of this. And to take notes, there's a gallery. So after you're done, you say, hey, I was looking at the great crested grebe. So great. So what is it telling me about them? Where are they? 1, so Australia, Europe, Eastern Europe, Southern Africa. Their habitat, they're in a lot of lakes, inland lakes, reservoirs, especially those with vegetation, lots of vegetation. And then what are their reproductive habits? So they're monogamous, meaning they have 1 mate for their whole lives. And it tells you about what's going on. So I really want you to focus on the reproductive aspect of this. So what are they doing? So they're mating. What does reproduction look like for them? What's typical? Do they have 1 baby? Do they have thousands of babies? What's going on? So do that for at least I believe I said 4 of these different animals. Oh my goodness. 4 of these different animals. Yep, so 4 of these different species. Okay, so again, so you're writing down what their reproductive tendencies are, and I want you to focus on the similarities and differences between the different species that you're doing. So pause the video now to go through 3 rounds of the game, and then focus on 4 of the species that you are interested in, and focus on writing their reproductive habits. Okay, welcome back. So by now you should have played 3 rounds of the game, and you should have written your notes about the different species that you chose. So you know all about what their reproductive habits are and the similarities and differences between the different species. So now on the top of page 8, you are taking time to rank these reproductive strategies in order of relatively difficult or expensive to relatively not difficult or inexpensive. So for example, we have an example here. The tube sponge's strategy of casting out clouds of sperm or eggs into the open water is relatively less expensive than the bowerbird's efforts to attract a mate by building an elaborate bower. Bower, I don't know. So this is thinking about, so for example, in this example, so a tube sponge, it just releases its sperm or eggs into water. That's not very expensive. You don't spend a lot of time doing that. You just kind of do it and hope for the best. Whereas the bird spends a lot of time building this decoration or something that's going to attract a mate. And that means you're putting more time and energy and resources into attracting a mate. So that's more expensive. So think about that when you're going back on your notes and thinking about the different species that you wrote about and their reproductive habits, to rank them from most to least expensive. So pause the video now to do that. Welcome back. So by now you should have completed the top part of page 8, where you're ranking the reproductive strategies of the different organisms that you read about. So now we're going to move on to answering the questions on page 8 and 9. So just before the video. So let's do page 8 and 9. So pause the video. So this you can also do even if you were unable to play the mating game. So thinking about what different things are the questions asking, you don't need to necessarily have played the game. So pause the video now, and then we'll talk about it in a minute when you guys are done. Okay, welcome back. So let's discuss some of these things. So here we are for question 1. Let's go over it together. So what are some things that animals can't do when they're focusing so much time and energy on finding or attracting a mate? At this point, you should have written something down for this. So things that come to the top of my head is when they're focusing their time on finding a mate, they're spending less time finding food for themselves, hunting, scavenging, what have you. They're spending less time making their nests. They're spending less time alert for predators. They're spending less time sleeping or getting the rest that they need. So they're not able to do all these other things that might be advantageous for them elsewhere because they're trying to find that perfect mate to get their bloodline down, to pass on their genes. So you can think about this too as humans do this. So a person makes himself all pretty and ready, or buys new outfits, or combs their hair, takes their shower, does all this stuff before a date. You're spending all that time getting ready that you could be spending doing something else. You could be spending that eating, sleeping, going for a walk, getting some exercise, doing something that you genuinely enjoy. But you are choosing to spend that time to get ready, to look good, to either attract a mate or go on a date with somebody and make them more attracted to you and want to be more committed to you. So humans do this as well. So that's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. Okay, next question. So why do you think some organisms produce many offspring that require very little prenatal care, while other organisms produce very few offspring but devote huge amounts of time and resources to them? So you guys should have gotten something for this. So we can think about this as typically the larger an animal is, or the higher up it is on the food chain, the less amount of offspring they're going to produce. And so this could just be simple as a spider produces thousands or hundreds of offspring because they're so tiny that a lot of those spiders are going to get squished or eaten by something else, by other spiders, by birds, by all this other stuff. So they need to produce more offspring because they're less likely to survive. Whereas a cheetah cub is at the top of the food chain. So they have mom, they have dad, they have whoever to take care of them, and different members of their family to take care of them until they're old enough to be the apex predator that they are, meaning that they're more likely to survive because they have less predators and less environmental dangers to them. What else? So what proportion of each parent's genetic material would the offspring of any of these species have? So nature of sexual reproduction is that you get half of the genetic material from the female and half from the male parent. Okay, and what are some advantages and disadvantages of asexual reproduction? So asexual reproduction means an organism is able to just make carbon copies of itself, so exact copies of itself, and that has advantages and disadvantages. So some advantages, you guys could have gotten this reading from the background reading. So some of the advantages are that they spend less time reproducing, they're able to do this rapidly, and they're also able to do it really efficiently, meaning that they'll create a large number of offspring in a short amount of time. But because they're able to do this efficiently, like I said before, their offspring are exact copies of themselves. Meaning if there's something wrong, something that's not suitable for the environment in their DNA that's going to cause them not to survive, then all of their offspring, unless there's some sort of mutation or something weird going on where it is able to adapt differently because there's something off about it, then this organism is not going to have any genetic diversity, meaning it's going to be less likely to survive if something about its being is not suitable for the environment that it's in. Okay, so now the next question is asking us about what benefits do we think that sexual selection might have? So kind of the opposite of asexual reproduction, there's more genetic diversity in sexual selection. So as a result of this genetic diversity, human beings, other animals, for example, are able to adapt and then evolve as a species. So if there's some sort of genetic mutation or different genes getting passed around, then these organisms are able to adapt and survive in varying conditions. So if something about them is not necessarily working, not all of them are going to die because they don't share the exact same DNA that others do. So hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, put them in my comments, text me, email me. I'll have my phone number and email at the end of this. So finally, at the bottom of page 9, you have a video to watch. You just click on this link here. I'll also post it in the Google Classroom for you guys, and at the link in the description. So you're answering the guiding questions. So pause the video now so you can do that. And again, focus on these questions. Welcome back. So by now you should have completed questions 1 through 3 after watching the video on page 9 and 10 of your packet. So we're ready to move on to the final stage of the packet, which is you are answering this big question. So we're not going to go over this. I want you guys to send me this in Google Classroom, email it to me, answer this question, okay? So why do you look different than your siblings? What is different? So use evidence from what we learned on Monday about meiosis and then what we learned today about reproduction and fertilization. Let's change that. Hopefully a lot of you haven't made the copy yet. So pause the video now and answer that question, and then be sure to send it to me in some form. So text, email. Okay, welcome back. So you should be all done with page 10 of your packet. So you should have that filled out till page 10. And we're gonna take a little look ahead, and then we're gonna be done for the day. So just looking ahead, we have a live classroom tomorrow on March 26th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Pop in whenever. If you wanna pop in during your specific time, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. I know yesterday on March 24th, we had a really good session with some good questions, so you guys should check that out too. And then finally, we have our last video posting of the week on Friday, March 27th, and that's gonna be at 10 a.m. like always. And as always, I'm going to end with my contact information. So my email, phone number, I can get texts or calls at this number. So if you have any questions, I'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. And also just commenting on this video or on Google Classroom. So I hope that was a good lesson for you guys. It was really interesting for me. So I'll see you next time. Bye.